The Type VAC U-boat that slipped beneath the Atlantic surface on March 15, 1943, carried what German Naval Command believed was the perfect stealth technology until American radar operators began tracking every submarine movement from 200 m away. The Marine called their submarines gray wolves of the deep. The Americans would soon have another name for them, sitting ducks. March 15, 1943, 0 hours 400 miles southwest of Iceland. The German U-boat U-247 under Captain Lieutenant Heinrich Wolf had just begun what should have been an invisible approach toward Allied convoy HX-229. The submarine's hydrophone operator reported clear water ahead, no destroyer engines, no escort vessels within detection range. According to every calculation in the Marine's tactical manual, U-247 was completely undetected at that exact moment. 180 miles away aboard the USS Bow Aviation, electronics technician First Class Robert Radar Bob Patterson was watching something impossible appear on his and /APS-20 radar screen. A faint blip, barely visible against the Atlantic's electronic noise, but moving in a pattern no surface vessel could maintain. Patterson adjusted his scope's gain and called his supervisor over. "Chief, you need to see this. I've got a submerged contact at bearing 270, range 180 mi." What Patterson was witnessing represented the culmination of 18 months of secret development by the radiation laboratory at MIT. The /APS-20 search radar mounted on specially modified TBF Avenger aircraft could detect the tiny radar signature created when a submarine's conning tower broke the surface for just seconds during periscope observations or battery charging. The Germans had no idea such technology existed. Gross Admiral Karl Donutz, commanding the U-boat fleet from his headquarters in Lora, France, had spent 2 years perfecting what he called rut tactic, Wolfpack tactics. His strategic planning, assumed Allied detection capabilities, extended no further than 10 to 12 mi under optimal conditions. German intelligence had captured Allied destroyers and examined their radar equipment. They knew about the Type 271 surface search radar and the HF/DF radio direction finding systems, but they knew nothing about airborne centimetric radar operating at 10,000 ft altitude with detection ranges exceeding 200 Mu-247s. Crew continued their approach following procedures that had sunk over 3,000 Allied merchant vessels. Wolf ordered the boat to periscope depth at 0.347 hours for a standard navigation fix. The periscope remained exposed for exactly 47 seconds, long enough for the submarine steel conning tower to reflect electromagnetic waves back to Patterson's radar antenna within minutes. 4 TBF Avengers were airborne from the boat, each carrying depth charges and equipped with the same revolutionary radar that had detected U-247's position. The aircraft approached in a coordinated search pattern, their radar operators tracking the submarine's every movement beneath the surface at 0.420 hours. Lieutenant Commander James Mitchell, leading the hunter-killer group, radioed back to the bog. Contact confirmed. Submerged submarine bearing 268. Estimated depth 60 feet. Speed 4 knots. Beginning attack run. U-247 never saw the aircraft coming. The first indication of detection came when depth charges began exploding in a perfect pattern around the submarine. Within 18 minutes of breaking the surface for a navigation fix, U-247 was forced to emergency surface. Her pressure hull cracked and flooding. That Wolf's final radio transmission, intercepted by Allied listening posts, captured the confusion. Under attack by aircraft, no surface contacts detected, impossible accuracy, request immediate assistance. The age of invisible submarines had ended in the North Atlantic. though the Marine wouldn't understand why for months to come. The German U-boat force that dominated Atlantic shipping lanes in early 1943 represented the most sophisticated submarine warfare system ever developed. Gross Admiral Karl Donitz commanded 400 operational submarines manned by crews who had perfected stealth tactics through 3 years of continuous combat operations. German submarine technology had evolved far beyond Allied expectations. The Type VC boats featured double-hull construction that minimized noise signatures, electric motors for silent running, and hydrophone arrays sensitive enough to detect convoy engines at 50 m ranges. Each submarine carried 14 torpedoes and could remain submerged for up to 20 hours during combat operations. But Donit's real innovation was tactical, not technological. His Wolfpack doctrine concentrated 15 to 20 submarines in coordinated attack formations. Across convoy routes, the system worked through precise intelligence gathering and communication protocols that had taken years to perfect German Bean's cryptanalysis teams. Operating from heavily fortified bunkers in occupied France, intercepted and decoded Allied merchant marine communications. They knew convoy departure times, routes, cargo manifests, and escort compositions before ships left port. This intelligence reached U-boat commanders through Enigma, encrypted radio transmissions that German cryptographers believed were mathematically unbreakable. Kapitänser C. Eberhard Gott Donitz operations chief had calculated the mathematical precision of submarine warfare. German intelligence estimated Allied detection capabilities at 8 to 12, under optimal conditions using AAC sonar. Wolfpack tactics kept submarines beyond this range until final approach phases. The attack sequence had been refined through hundreds of successful operations. Submarines maintained stations 50 mi apart across convoy routes. When merchant ships were detected, the discovering submarine would shadow the convoy while radiating position reports to pack headquarters. Additional submarines would converge from predetermined positions, approaching the convoy from multiple directions simultaneously. Night surface attacks allowed submarines to use their superior speed and maneuverability while remaining invisible to Allied radar systems. German submarine commanders had studied, captured British radar equipment, and understood its limitations. The Type 271 cinematic radar mounted on escort destroyers could detect surface vessels at 15 to 20 m. But submarines running on the surface presented minimal radar signatures. German submarine construction facilities at Hamburg, Bremen, and Kiel were producing new submarines faster than Allied forces could sink them. By March 1943, German shipyards delivered one new submarine every 3 days. Each boat required 18 months of construction and represented the culmination of German engineering expertise. The crews themselves were the elite of the Kriegsmarine. Submarine service required volunteers who completed 8 months of specialized training at the submarine school in Neustadt. They learned to operate in confined spaces for weeks at a time, to remain silent during depth charge attacks, and to execute complex torpedo firing solutions while maneuvering at high speed. Donit's headquarters staff had calculated that destroying 600 tons of Allied shipping monthly would force Britain out of the war. By early 1943, German submarines were sinking 400 tons per month with acceptable losses, typically 8 to 12 submarines monthly from a fleet of 400 operational boats. The mathematics favored Germany. British shipbuilding capacity could not replace losses at current destruction rates. American Liberty ship production was accelerating, but German submarine production was accelerating faster. What German intelligence could not calculate was the revolutionary detection capability being deployed secretly aboard. American escort carriers operating in the North Atlantic. The weapon that would revolutionize submarine warfare had been born from desperation in a converted warehouse at MIT Radiation Laboratory in Cambridge, Massachusetts. By September 1942, German U-boats were sinking Allied merchant vessels faster than shipyards could replace them. Dr. Luis Alvarez, leading a team of 37 engineers and physicists, received a classified directive: develop airborne radar capable of detecting submarines beyond visual range. The breakthrough came through understanding electromagnetic wave propagation at previously unexplored frequencies. Traditional Allied radar operated at 200 MHz, producing wavelengths too long for precise submarine detection. Alvarez's team developed the APS-20 system, operating at 3,000 MHz, 10 times higher frequency with correspondingly greater resolution. The technical specifications documented in Navy Bureau of Aeronautics records revealed the system's revolutionary capabilities. The magnetron transmitter generated 50 kW of peak power through a waveguide antenna array measuring 8 ft in diameter. The system could maintain continuous 360-degree scanning while discriminating targets as small as a submarine's conning tower at ranges exceeding 150 m under optimal atmospheric conditions. Initial testing at Quantick Point Naval Air Station in November 1942 demonstrated capabilities that exceeded theoretical predictions. Test flights using a captured German submarine revealed that the APS-20 could detect a fully submerged boat at periscope depth from 75 m away. When submarines surfaced for battery charging, a requirement every 18 to 20 hours, detection range extended to 200 m. The critical innovation involved signal processing techniques developed specifically for submarine detection. Traditional radar distinguished targets by size and reflectivity. The APS-20 used Doppler shift analysis to identify movement patterns characteristic of submarines. Surface vessels maintained steady courses and speeds. Submarines moved in distinctive patterns: approach, dive, surface, charge batteries, submerge again. Dr. Harold Z's signal analysis team at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, developed classification algorithms that could distinguish submarine signatures from surface vessels, whales, or atmospheric interference. The system analyzed target movement over time intervals, identifying acceleration patterns impossible for surface ships to maintain. Production began at Western Electric's Kearney, New Jersey facility in January 1943. Each APS-20 system required 847 precision components, including the revolutionary magnetron tubes manufactured exclusively at Bell Telephone Laboratories. The complete system weighed 650 pounds and required extensive aircraft modifications for installation. The TBF Avenger aircraft proved ideal for radar operations. Its internal bomb bay could accommodate the entire APS-20 system while maintaining external hardpoints for depth charges or acoustic torpedoes. Power requirements necessitated additional generators, but the Avenger's Wright R2600 engine provided sufficient electrical capacity. Installation procedures required removing the aircraft's dorsal gun turret and replacing it with the radar antenna dome. Internal modifications included installing 3 additional radio operators' positions, signal processing equipment, and navigation plotting tables. Each modified aircraft represented a flying radar station with immediate attack capability. By March 1943, 16 escort carriers operated in the North Atlantic, each carrying 4 APS-20 equipped aircraft. The system created overlapping radar coverage across primary submarine transit routes between German bases and Atlantic hunting grounds. German intelligence remained completely unaware of these capabilities. Captured Allied aircraft had been examined, but the APS-20 installations were classified above German intelligence penetration levels. No German agent had accessed information about airborne centimeter radar development. March 22, 1943, 0615 hours. USS Bog operating 300 m northeast of the Azores. Lieutenant Commander David Harrison received the mission briefing that would demonstrate whether 18 months of secret development could change the course of the Battle of the Atlantic. Intelligence reports indicated a German Wolfpack concentration in grids square B-47 threatening convoy ONS-1 carrying critical supplies to Britain. The APS-20 equipped TBF Avengers had been operational for 6 weeks, but previous contacts had escaped before attack aircraft could close to weapons range. Today would mark the first coordinated hunter-killer operation using real-time radar tracking. Aviation, electronics technician, 2nd S. Thomas Scanner, Riley occupied the radar operator position aboard Avenger 23, call sign Bloodhound. His APS-20 console displayed 200 m of North Atlantic Ocean as green phosphorescent traces on a circular scope. At 0627 hours, Riley detected the first submarine contact at bearing 045 degrees, range 127 mi. Contact designated Romeo 1. Riley transmitted submerged submarine bearing 045, range 127 mi, estimated course 180 degrees, speed 6 knots. Within minutes, 3 additional radar contacts appeared on scopes from different aircraft. The German Wolfpack that intelligence had predicted was materializing on American radar screens in real time. U-Boat U-191, U-6, 128, U-3, 184, and U-447 were converging on convoy ONS, one following standard brutal tactic procedures. German submarine commanders had no indication they were being tracked. Captain Leighton Heinrich V. Burr, commanding U-628, had received orders to establish contact with the Allied convoy and guide pack members into attack positions. His submarine maintained course 195 degrees at periscope depth, using standard approach procedures that had succeeded in dozens of previous operations. At 0645 hours, V. Burr ordered U-628 to periscope depth for navigation verification. The periscope observation lasted 38 seconds, sufficient time for the submarine's conning tower to generate a radar return detectable at 89 mi range by scanner Riley's equipment. Romeo 2 has surfaced, Riley reported, bearing 038, range 89 mi. Contact is stationary, probably charging batteries or conducting periscope observation. Harrison coordinated the attack through precise vectoring instructions to all 4 Avengers. Unlike previous anti-submarine operations that relied on visual sighting or sonar detection, the APS-20 system provided continuous tracking data. German submarines could not hide beneath the surface when their periodic surfacing requirements created detectable radar signatures. At 07:03 hours, Lieutenant Junior Grade Robert Mitchell, piloting Avenger 31, achieved visual contact with U-628 at 4-mile range. The German submarine was running submerged at periscope depth, completely unaware of approaching aircraft. Mitchell's depth charge attack achieved perfect placement. 4 Mark 54 depth charges detonated in a precise pattern around U-628's estimated position. The submarine was forced to emerge and surface with severe flooding in the forward torpedo compartment. Weber's emergency transmission intercepted by Allied listening posts captured German confusion. Under attack by aircraft with impossible accuracy, no radar contact detected. Request immediate tactical guidance. Similar attacks developed simultaneously against the other 3 submarines in the Wolfpack. Within 47 minutes, German Naval Command lost contact with all 4 boats converging on convoy ONS-1. For the first time in the Battle of the Atlantic, Allied forces had achieved tactical surprise against German submarines using technological superiority rather than numerical advantage. Psychological crisis. Within 72 hours, G. Admiral Dunit's Operations Center in Laurent received reports of impossible Allied detection capabilities from surviving submarine commanders across the North Atlantic. Captain Lieutenant Franz Weber, sole survivor of U-628, provided testimony that challenged 3 years of German tactical doctrine. During post-rescue interrogation by Allied intelligence officers, Weber described attack patterns that seemed to violate the laws of physics. They found us when we were completely submerged. The aircraft approached directly to our position without search patterns. They knew exactly where we were. German submarine psychology had been built on the fundamental principle of invisibility. Crews endured weeks of claustrophobic conditions, constant danger, and mechanical stress because they believed their submarines were undetectable when properly operated. The revelation that Allied forces could track submerged submarines shattered the psychological foundation. Radio intercepts decoded by Allied crypto-analysts revealed the scope of German confusion. On March 24th, U-Boat Command transmitted, "All boats report detection methods used by enemy aircraft. Impossible accuracy suggests new capability unknown to intelligence." By March 26th, multiple boats report immediate aircraft response to periscope observations, recommend emergency tactical review. The psychological impact cascaded through the entire German submarine force. Crews who had previously conducted routine periscope observations now treated each surfacing as potentially fatal exposure. Battery charging operations, previously conducted with confidence during nighttime hours, became exercises in terror. Captain Suez Abahatkat documented the morale crisis in his operations diary. Submarine commanders requesting permission to abort patrols. Crews report inability to maintain normal operations when detection appears certain. Wolfpack tactics impossible when individual boats cannot remain undetected. German naval intelligence launched desperate investigations into Allied detection capabilities. Teams examined captured Allied equipment, interrogated prisoners, and analyzed every available technical document. They discovered references to improved radar systems, but found no evidence of the revolutionary airborne capabilities actually being deployed. The psychological warfare aspects proved as devastating as the physical destruction of submarines. German crews began reporting phantom aircraft contacts, imaginary radar detection, and obsessive concerns about electromagnetic emissions. Submarine commanders modified standard operating procedures, reducing periscope observations and extending submerged operations beyond safe limits. Medical officers at German submarine bases reported unprecedented rates of combat fatigue, nervous exhaustion, and requests for transfer to surface vessels. The elite submarine service, previously considered the most prestigious assignment in the Kriegsmarine, began experiencing recruitment difficulties for the first time since 1940. Most critically, German submarine commanders began avoiding contact with Allied convoys. The aggressive tactics that had sunk millions of tons of Allied shipping gave way to defensive operations focused on survival rather than attack. Wolfpack formations, dispersed as individual submarines, prioritized concealment over coordinated assault. By April 1943, German submarine effectiveness had declined by 60% despite no reduction in the number of operational boats. The technological revolution had created a psychological revolution that transformed German submarines from hunters into hunted prey, fundamentally altering the strategic balance in the Battle of the Atlantic. The destruction of Wolfpack Stürmer on March 22, 1943, created a psychological crisis that reverberated through German naval command faster than the shock waves from exploding depth charges. Within 72 hours, Gross Admiral Donat's Operations Center in Lohr received reports of impossible Allied detection capabilities from surviving submarine commanders across the North Atlantic. Captain Lieutenant Fron Weber, sole survivor of U-628, provided testimony that challenged 3 years of German tactical doctrine. During post-rescue interrogation by Allied intelligence officers, Weber described attack patterns that seemed to violate the laws of physics. They found us when we were completely submerged. The aircraft approached directly to our position without search patterns. They knew exactly where we were. German submarine psychology had been built on the fundamental principle of invisibility. Crews endured weeks of claustrophobic conditions, constant danger, and mechanical stress because they believed their submarines were undetectable when properly operated. The revelation that Allied forces could track submerged submarines shattered this psychological foundation. Radio intercepts decoded by Allied cryptologists revealed the scope of German confusion. On March 24th, U-Boat Command transmitted, "All boats report detection methods used by enemy aircraft. Impossible accuracy suggests new capability unknown to intelligence." By March 26th, multiple boats report immediate aircraft response to periscope observations. Recommend emergency tactical review. The psychological impact cascaded through the entire German submarine force. Crews who had previously conducted routine periscope observations now treated each surfacing as potentially fatal exposure. Battery charging operations previously conducted with confidence during nighttime hours became exercises in terror. Captain Zuri Eberhard documented the morale crisis in his operations diary. Submarine commanders requesting permission to abort patrols. Crews report inability to maintain normal operations when detection appears certain. Wolfpack tactics impossible when individual boats cannot remain undetected. German naval intelligence launched desperate investigations into Allied detection capabilities. Teams examined captured Allied equipment, interrogated prisoners, and analyzed every available technical document. They discovered references to improved radar systems, but found no evidence of the revolutionary airborne capabilities actually being deployed. The psychological warfare aspects proved as devastating as the physical destruction of submarines. German crews began reporting phantom aircraft contacts, imaginary radar detection, and obsessive concerns about electromagnetic emissions. Submarine commanders modified standard operating procedures, reducing periscope observations, and extending submerged operations beyond safe limits. Medical officers at German submarine bases reported unprecedented rates of combat fatigue, nervous exhaustion, and requests for transfer to surface vessels. The elite submarine service, previously considered the most prestigious assignment in the Kriegsmarine, began experiencing recruitment difficulties for the first time since 1940. Most critically, German submarine commanders began avoiding contact with Allied convoys. The aggressive tactics that had sunk millions of tons of Allied shipping gave way to defensive operations focused on survival rather than attack. Wolfpack formations dispersed as individual submarines prioritized concealment over coordinated assault. By April 1943, German submarine effectiveness had declined by 60% despite no reduction in the number of operational boats. The technological revolution had created a psychological revolution that transformed German submarines from hunters into hunted prey, fundamentally altering the strategic balance in the Battle of the Atlantic.